Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, colleagues, students, esteemed guests. My name is Pramuan Bunkawanicha. I'm the Dean of the Faculty of ESCP Business School. It is my great honor and privilege to stand before you today as we gather to celebrate a significant milestone in the academic journey of one of our most distinguished faculty members, Professor Argyro Avgoustaki. Argyro's story is one of the dedication, excellence, and an unwavering commitment to advancing knowledge. Since completing her PhD in business administration and quantitative methods with the highest honors from University Carlos III in Madrid in 2012, she has been an integral part of our academic community here at ESCP. In fact, ESCP has been her first and only academic home, a testament to the profound connection she has built with this institution. Throughout her tenure, she has shared her expertise and passion in fields that touch the very core of organizational success, human resource management, organizational behavior, and research methods. Her teaching inspires not only academic curiosity, but also the practical application of knowledge, equipping students to lead with impact in their professional lives. Argyro's research is nothing short of remarkable. It delves into the critical intersection of human resource management and industrial relations. Exploring themes that shape the future of work, her contributions to understanding the high-performance work practices, flexible working arrangements, and employee efforts have left an indelible mark of her field. The breadth of her academic influence is reflected in her publication record. She has published in a suite of prestige journals, including the Journal of Management, Industrial and Labor Relations Review, Human Resource Management Journal, British Journal of Industrial Relations, and among others. These accomplishments, along with coverage of her work in prominent media outlets like the Financial Times, Forbes, The Guardian, and CNBC, underscore the wide-reaching impact of her scholarship. What makes today even more meaningful for me personally is Argyro's research leadership role on our London campus, a position she has held since 2019. Indeed, her appointment to this role came just a few months after I began my own journey as Associate Dean for Research at ESCP in September 2018. Over the years, we have shared a collective vision for advancing our institution's research impact. And it has been a privilege to work alongside her. Her positivity and collaborative spirit have made her not just a wonderful colleague, but also a true partner in our shared vision. Every time I meet Argyro, I'm always moved by her calm, her peaceful demeanor, which seems to radiate a sense of balance and reassurance. No matter the challenges we have faced together, encouraging professors to do more research, and there have been many, she navigates them with remarkable grace and unwavering positivity, inspiring everyone around her. She has an extraordinary talent for finding solutions where others see only obstacles, offering clarity and comfort even in the most complex situations. Her presence serves as a powerful reminder of incredible impact that kindness, optimism, and steady heart can have on achieving great things. Beyond research and teaching, she has shaped the academic and professional life of countless individuals through her leadership, from directing graduate programs like the Master in European Business, which is then turned to MBA in International Management, to spearheading the HR Analytics Program for industrial giant LVMH executive educations. She exemplifies what means to bridge academia and practice. Today, as we celebrate her inaugural professorship lecture, we honor not just her achievements, though there are many, but the kindness, optimism, and humanity she brings to every aspect of her work and relationships. She inspires all of us, not just as academic, but as a person. And it's an honor to celebrate you today. Please join me in welcoming and congratulating Professor Argyro Avgoustaki.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Thank you. Dear guests, colleagues, family, and friends, thank you very much for being here today to listen to my inaugural speech. I'm happy to share this moment in my career with all of you. I'm also happy because my mother could make it and she's here with us. As I was preparing my speech, I realized that today coincides with Thanksgiving, so it provides a very good opportunity to reflect on the different things I'm thankful for in academia. I will start by thanking those who hired me 12 years ago, and they gave me my first and only academic job. By hiring me, they gave me the opportunity to join a school that values both research and teaching, as well as the chance to work with wonderful colleagues. Next, I would like to thank those who supported my application to full professor, and specifically the Dean of ESCP Business School at the London Campus, Cameron Rasmdust, the Dean of Research and Dean of Faculty at the time of my promotion, Pramuan Bunkawanicha, who is here with us, and Valérie Moati, the previous and current directors of faculty at the London Campus, Daniela Lup, who is going also to close the ceremony today, and Marita Yard, Robert Wilkin from the Berlin Campus, who presented my case to the promotion committee, the management department, and the promotion committee, who voted in favor of this promotion, and colleagues from other universities who wrote letters that supported my appointment to professor. Some of them are here today. I would also like to thank my colleagues at ESCP, both academic and professional staff, for our collaboration over the last 12 years I've been working here. Of course, my students, co-authors, and finally, my PhD advisor, Jaime Ortega, to whom I owe a lot. To be honest, I never thought that I would be here, and I'm not referring to the position of professor, but in academia in general. And before I talk about my research, I would like to take a moment to explain how I found my way into academia. This is a question I've been asked mainly by my friends in Greece. Specifically, I was asked if I knew when we were at school and later in university that I wanted to become a professor. And the answer is no, I didn't. I believe my friends used to ask this question because they didn't remember me ever mentioning that profession, or they somehow thought that I would be pursuing a completely different path. I thought the same. I thought that I would be graduating from my bachelor studies in Athens, and then I would go back to Crete, where I'm from, and work for a company there, and perhaps working in HR, as this was the major I had studied in university. And initially, this is what I did. I went back to Crete. I thought I wouldn't leave the island again, confirming what one of my good friends was saying: Cretans stay in Crete. I also tended to believe that our future is predetermined, that some things are not possible, and that we are bound to follow a very specific path. But it's a relief to realize that this is not always the case, and our paths do not need to be predetermined. We have the ability to change direction if we want to, or at least try. And so I changed my path, and from working in the industry, I went back to studying. I started a master's program in business economics and management at the Mediterranean Agronomic Institute in Crete, known as MAIH. There, I realized I wanted to become a professor and have an academic career. At MAIH, I had the privilege of meeting professors from very good institutions who showed what a rewarding profession academia can be. They also made it accessible by offering opportunities to pursue PhD programs at their institutions. I also met many students who wanted to pursue an academic career. Some of these students came from less fortunate backgrounds and faced significant challenges, including unstable geopolitical environments in their home countries. Despite these difficulties, their commitment to their studies and later on to research, even in the face of adversity, was both inspiring and humbling for me. I had and still have a huge admiration for them. For me, my classmates, you can see some of them here. It's also me in the picture, and I'm taking the exam of statistics. So for me, my classmates, as well as students from other departments at MAIH, were a source of inspiration, and I'm grateful to them for all I learned and for being such positive examples. These students serve as a reminder of the diverse paths that can lead individuals to academia. And thanks to them and thanks to my professors, I came to realize that pursuing a PhD is what I want and that it is possible. Of course, what is possible and what is feasible are different things. So entering at a suitable PhD program was not an easy task, because the PhD programs I was applying, and in some cases I was accepted into, often provided either partial scholarship or no funding at all. Until I met a student again at MAIH, and she recommended University Carlos III in Madrid for pursuing a PhD. I applied, and it was my last application. The acceptance letter came in June 2007, and as you can see here, I have kept it. I remember as I was reading the letter, it was getting better and better. It was mentioning that I could work on my topic of interest, that they were offering full scholarship, and as part of my duties, I would be teaching some seminars, which for me was great, as I would be gaining some teaching experience too. And also it was saying that after the second year, I may be required to teach in Spanish. On that last point, I was so happy while I was reading the letter that, of course, I didn't realize that I'm not really speaking Spanish, just a little bit. But afterwards, I thought, okay, why not? Learning such a beautiful language sounded amazing too. And so I began my doctoral studies under the supervision of Jaime Ortega. I had a very clear idea of what I wanted to study. Specifically, I was interested in the impact of human resource practices on firm performance. My initial research focused on examining the impact of training on productivity and identifying the mechanisms underlying this relationship. During one of our meetings, my supervisor brought up the concept of work effort, and specifically overtime work. I found this topic very interesting and important to study. So I started examining the link between human resource practices and overtime work. Looking back, I believe that meeting opened my horizon considerably, as until that time all my efforts were on understanding the link between HR practice and performance. And that meeting may also have marked the moment I discovered my second research interest and perhaps my future academic identity. I'm grateful to my PhD advisor for this, for helping me identify what I believe are important research topics. I'm also grateful for his time, effort, and the resources he invested in my academic development. He had a great ability to provide detailed, constructive, and very specific feedback while being exceptionally kind, which I believe contributed to my growth as a researcher, but also as a person. I was very much inspired by his research, his clarity and precision in writing, the way he was using the language to interact with others and, of course, myself, and his remarkable skill in teaching and conveying knowledge. Jaime, if you can hear me, I want to thank you very much. Even after I completed my PhD and I started working as an assistant professor here at ESCP, he remained available to provide further support and valuable comments that helped me publish my first paper. And although I had focused a lot on studying the impact of HR practice on performance, my first publication was on work effort in the Industrial and Labor Relations Review, a journal I was reading frequently, and I was hoping to publish in one day and join the conversation of scholars who had done important work on this topic. In this paper that you see on the slide, I used data from the European Working Conditions Survey and found that the amount of uncertainty employees experience at work, as well as individual and bundles of HR practices, were positively associated with employee overtime. Moreover, in this study, I found that certain HR practices served as mediators, transmitting part of the effect of uncertainty on employee overtime. I continue in the same stream of research, and the second paper here is co-authored with Iulia Besa from Leeds University Business School. Iulia was my first co-author. At that time, Iulia's main interests were about flexible working, and I was focused on the different types of work effort. We were both junior academics, and we combined our interests and work on a study that examined how different bundles of flexible working arrangements are associated with work effort. We used data from the Understanding Society survey and found that the associations are negative, especially employees with fewer rather than more family responsibilities. And apart from antecedents of work effort, I started examining outcomes of work effort. In this paper here, which is co-authored with Hans Frankort from Bayes Business School, we studied two types of work effort, overtime work and work intensity, and how they are linked to employee well-being, but also career outcomes. We used data from the European Working Conditions surveys and found that greater work effort relates strongly to reduced well-being and modestly to inferior career outcomes. We also examined how employee discretion can alleviate the adverse implications of work effort, and our results revealed that discretion helps. However, even with discretion, we found that work intensity generally has worse implications for employees compared to overtime work. For us, this was a very important finding because we had observed that there is a lot of focus on one type of work effort, which was employee overtime, in the literature, in the media, in the government policies, while the most detrimental type of work effort appears to be work intensity. Given the negative implications of work effort, my co-authors and I tried to understand if high work effort is always detrimental for employee well-being or whether there are exceptions. First, with Almudena Cañibaño from ESCP Madrid, we drew on self-determination theory and used data collected during her PhD studies from the Spanish division of a major international consultancy firm and found that working overtime can have a negative impact on well-being if it is driven by extrinsic motivators such as social acceptance. For example, when employees work overtime because their colleagues do it or because leaving early from their job makes them look bad. In contrast, when intrinsically motivated, such as when personal growth or commitment drive the work effort, overtime is not harmful and it can even be beneficial to well-being. With Hans Frankort, we complemented this work by introducing self-determination theory to the domain of work intensity. We used survey data collected from a major grocery chain in Greece, and similar to the study I did with Almudena, we found that motives matter. And if employees are intrinsically motivated, the negative implications of work intensity are likely to be minimized or even become positive. For example, employees are more satisfied or less likely to quit their jobs. In parallel, I continue studying topics related to HR practices and performance and developed a few projects using either personnel data collected from specific companies or, again, government survey data. Unfortunately, some of the studies never got published. The first study I published on this topic was in 2022, 10 years out of the PhD, in the Journal of Management, almost 8 years after its conception. It is co-authored with Hans Frankort, and we focused on the impact of HR practice on performance, and specifically, one practice, incentive payments. Of course, there is a vast literature on this topic, examining mainly what happens to firm performance when an employer offers monetary incentive to employees. In other words, what happens to firm performance when this practice is adopted in an organization. Yet we discovered that there is not much work on the impact of the actual payments employees receive on performance. We used longitudinal data spanning 169 weeks collected from one company in Greece and we focused on the customer service function of that company. We found no evidence that incentive payments affect the dynamics of incentivized performance. In contrast, they do temporarily increase various unincentivized outcomes, such as sales revenues and average call duration with customers. Now, because we were able to follow the company for a substantial period of time, we were able to explain why the effect occurs. We believe it is reciprocity, stimulated by a periodic increase in the salience of the incentive plan. In the year after, I published another study on the impact, on this topic, on the impact of HR practice on performance. And with Seraina Anagnostopoulou from the University of Piraeus, I examined how different systems of HR practices affect corporate investment efficiency. We used data from US firms from 2002 to 2016 and found negative results. This project highlights the potential downsides of HR practices, demonstrating that they may not have a positive effect on all types of performance outcomes. In other projects, I examined additional HR practices, and instead of firm outcomes, I focused on employee outcomes. For example, I studied employee participation and representation in decision-making with Rea Pruska, Alexandros Psychoghios and Adrian Wilkinson, and telework and different types of flexible working and well-being with Almudena Canibanyo, again from ESCP Madrid. Overall, I have mainly focused on two streams of literature. The first stream focuses on the antecedents and outcomes of different types of work effort, while the second stream focuses on the impact of HR practices, individuals and bundles, on employee and performance outcomes. At the same time, I have connected the two by studying the role of HR practices in determining employee work effort. Our findings on work effort have been very consistent in different studies and also seem to align with prior literature. In terms of the role of individual and bundles of HR practices on employee and performance outcomes, results are less straightforward. In some, HR practices, and in particular HR bundles, can have both positive and negative effects. Despite being conflicting, these results are in line with the literature, which has also revealed conflicting findings and has suggested that more work is needed in order to understand especially the role of HR bundles for different outcomes. This research has informed a lot my teaching in HRM, in Human Resources Management. I often use examples from these findings to explain to students the implications of work effort, the importance of human resource management, and that HR practices can have both positive but also a dark side. In my teaching, I also emphasize the significance of data-driven decision-making, as relying only on intuition can sometimes lead to poor choices. I would like to pursue these topics further. Specifically, given that we have found that work intensity has more severe implications for employees compared to overtime work, I would like to focus more on this type of work effort. In a recent article published in Industrial and Labor Relations Review in 2022, Green and co-authors, who have done substantial research on the topic of work effort, explained that high work intensity, meaning working with high speed or tight deadlines, for example, is common in various occupations and settings. However, studies that focus on work intensity are actually rare. Together with Hans Frankfurt, I have a few projects in progress that focus particularly on this kind of work effort. Moreover, given the conflicting evidence on the implication of HR practices, my research will continue to focus on exploring the impact of HR practice on employee and firm outcomes, with a particular focus on HR bundles. For example, together with Kerstin Alves from ESCP Berlin, we used data collected from a tax office and a prison to study the relationship between HR bundles and employee engagement. We are particularly interested in examining how bundles affect employee engagement in an environment where procedures and protocols are critically important. In this work, published and ongoing, I have the privilege of collaborating with long-standing but also new co-authors. Some of them are here. Common characteristics of my co-authors, and I mean it, include their generosity in terms of time, data, ideas, and friendly reviews. They also share a deep commitment to understanding how can we improve work environments and enhance employee experiences. We have probably all heard of unsuccessful teamwork collaborations. I never had one. And I hope that if you ask my co-authors, they would say the same about our collaborations. I ended up marrying one of my co-authors, although the causality is the other way around. First, we got married, and then we started working together. And last year, we welcomed our baby. I'm talking about Hans Frankfurt, whose research skills, ethical standards, learning ability, I can talk for ages, and sense of fairness are qualities I admire a lot. He is one of the most generous and intellectually curious individuals I know. In nearly all of my papers, his insightful comments have helped my work, and I have often seen him generously share his time and expertise to help others improve their research. During the last 12 years, we worked together on 3 papers, and each of them, I believe, was memorable and challenging for different reasons. This one was memorable because it reached a wider audience. We do research in order to contribute to the academic literature, of course, but we also hope to offer practical implications and potentially make a difference to employees, employers, and policymakers. We believe that with this paper, we somehow achieved that goal. The message was that oftentimes workers both complain and take pride in excessive work effort, perhaps because they accept inferior well-being while anticipating career-related progress. Our results show that the latter might not materialize. And this one here was memorable due to all the challenges we faced along the way. First, it was very challenging to refine the idea. In this article, we moved beyond reward expectancy to argue that performance can also derive from employees' reactive responses to received incentive payments. Second, in this project, we used data spanning more than 1,000 days, specifically 1,183 days, collected from one company in Greece. Now, to access the data, we had to spend months working late, during times when the company was least active, in order to gather all the information. Third, we used vector autoregression modeling, and although this approach is well established in literature such as in fields like macroeconomics and marketing science, it is relatively a less common method in our field. So we had to learn the method in order to be able to apply it and test the idea. For this project, I spent some time visiting the Department of Management Science at Lansing University Management School, and I was hosted by a PhD classmate and marketing scholar, Gorkan Yildirim. This time allowed me to gain some experience with the method. While the third paper that you see here was memorable because of the close contact we had with one company in Greece. So apart from contributions in the literature, we were able to offer direct managerial implications that were useful to a company in my home country. All of my published work has been under the name of ESCP Business School. The school has provided generous funding to advance this and other projects that I didn't mention here. It has also facilitated actually all the research visits to other universities, mainly in Europe. Now, for the purpose of this inaugural and probably for the last 20-25 minutes, I have reflected on my academic journey. Looking back, I believe I had the privilege of studying at institutions that offer high-quality education, and I work with an exceptional PhD advisor. I was fortunate to conduct research on topics I'm deeply interested in, and to be able to be part of a school that recognized my contributions, supported my research needs, and that shares values that I identify with. In recent years, I came to realize that one way to define success is to work at a school that you want and that wants you. Looking back, I believe I progressed in an environment where I felt that. And finally, throughout my career, I had the honor of collaborating with outstanding co-authors and colleagues, one of whom eventually became my life partner. And you might be sitting there thinking, did everything go so smoothly? There were no tragedies, no drama, no difficulties, nothing. You know, tragedy is originally Greek. We call it tragodia. So, of course, there were some difficulties along the way, especially during the first 3 years I was an assistant professor. You may recognize some of the difficulties I will mention, and I believe that some of them extend outside academia. I would like to go back to 2012. I recall one of my professors congratulating me on the day of my PhD defense. He said, "Welcome to the other side." I liked that remark and naively thought that now that I'm on the other side, my life as a professor compared to a PhD student would be even better. And I was wrong. I faced a number of difficulties, and although not every difficulty was directed at me personally, I observed enough around me to feel their significant impact. This moment served as a reminder that the academic path, while rewarding, can also be incredibly tough. Crossing over, I quickly discovered that an academic's job is a very lonely profession. Why I hadn't seen this before? While it may come with opportunities for collaboration and interaction, many aspects of academic work are inherently solitary. Writing research papers, proposals, books, preparing lectures demand uninterrupted time, leading to long hours, overtime, spent alone. This was one of the reasons why, together with colleagues and Will Harzing, Ling Yang, and Sasha Zhao, we founded Cigna. We wanted to foster a network that would counter the often solitary nature of academic work by promoting interaction, learning, and collaboration. Cigna has now been active for over 10 years and has over 400 members. During this time, I had the opportunity to connect with incredible women and academics all over the world. Some of them are here today, and I would like to thank them very much for being here and for co-creating Cigna. Academia is a lonely profession, but this difficulty gets better with time. Now, despite the sense that academia is a lonely profession, there is a persistent feeling of being exposed to a wide and often invisible audience while constantly being evaluated. This audience isn't just limited to colleagues or students who directly interact with you or reviewers that evaluate your work. It extends to peers in your field and casual observers who might form opinions about your work. Feeling isolated while constantly being seen and evaluated became overwhelming. I reached out for help from my colleagues, and conversations with colleagues at ESCP, but also at other universities, revealed that I was not alone in feeling this way. Also, because I teach human resources management, I tried to apply what I was teaching, especially concepts related to dealing with performance evaluations, because I recall how one single comment could linger in my mind for days and nights, making me question what I could have done better. While this aspect of academic life can be challenging, it gets better with time. And while I was feeling lonely, exposed, and constantly evaluated, the performance criteria, especially for research, were evolving. The formal performance criteria were clear, but in my mind, the informal and implicit expectations within the field seemed to be shifting. I had this dialogue in my mind. You should publish alone to show that you can do it. So you try to publish alone. Yes, but you should have more papers and develop collaborations. So you try to publish more and foster collaborations. Yes, but you are too many co-authors in this paper. So you try to publish with fewer co-authors. Yes, but the journals you target should be of higher quality. So you target better journals. Yes, but there is no impact. So you try to disseminate your work and have an impact. Yes, but the topics has to be close to your research identity. So you publish close to your research identity. Yes, but the topic should not be too close because the contribution becomes minimal. I felt that we are chasing a moving target. And while the implicit criteria were moving, getting accepted to a journal seemed unattainable. So I had all this discussion in my mind, and I was not even under the review process, right? My first publication came 3 years after I was out from the PhD, and it was not because of lack of trying. These 3 years, I was actively sending my work to journals, and all I was receiving were rejections. How many rejections can a person take? A lot. But perhaps you know what I'm going to say here. It gets better with time. And for me, it really did. Until the moment I received one comment that the choice of words was unfortunate. And this brings me to the final point, a difficulty that for me didn't get better with time and didn't get better with experience. I chose to elaborate on this final point because I have often come across discussions about this issue on social media and manifestos and conversations. These references suggest that this may not be an uncommon experience within the academic community. To clarify, I will share a few examples that highlight the issue. They are not exhaustive or necessarily the most challenging ones. One instance involved an article I was trying to publish, an article I had spent years writing and rewriting. I believe it had some merit. For those in the audience who are not in academia, let me provide some context. To publish our work, we often face numerous rejections. Each rejection typically comes with comments from reviewers and editors. We often receive valuable feedback that can help us refine our work and then try to submit to another journal. Reviewers and editors do this job that requires a considerable amount of time and effort voluntarily. So I had submitted one of my papers, perhaps for the 10th or 11th time, I don't remember. Also, maybe it was more, but I don't want to be imprecise, and received one more rejection. According to the editor or one of the reviewers, my paper simply was not a good fit for the journal. And they were probably right. But this rejection felt different. One of the first comments I read was, "This is unacceptable." More critical remarks followed. Now, what does unacceptable really mean? As you might guess from my accent, I'm not a native English speaker, so could the editor or reviewer have simply meant that this paper cannot be accepted for publication in this journal? Probably not. This was just wishful thinking. The word unacceptable struck me and, most importantly, left me with no clear direction on how to respond. What exactly needed to change? The idea, the theory, the data, the method, everything. Adjectives like this, in my view, add little value. They offer no constructive guidance. Instead, they add distraction, noise, and are simply unnecessary. How much more useful would the review be if they eliminated just one word? Looking back, I still feel that the rejection was justified, but not the choice of words. I also felt lucky that I never received a comment like this during a live presentation. Others were not that lucky. Years ago, I attended a presentation of a PhD student in a conference. A student presented a slide explaining the motivation of his paper, but that particular slide did not have any references. One of the professors in the audience commented, while raising his voice, on how useless the slide was. More comments followed. I felt terrible for the student, but I didn't say anything. The student eventually didn't stay in academia. Now, it could be because of incomplete slides, but it is less likely. Similar behaviors I have seen in other settings where people present or submit their work and receive comments like, "This paper is a disaster," "This paper could have been written by a first-year student," "This topic is boring," or presenters coming out of seminars saying that their work was ripped into pieces, or editors receiving comments like, "How dare you reject my paper?" I recently watched an inaugural of one of my co-authors. She was saying that she had the opportunity to work on a book, and when the publisher agreed to commission the book, I use her words, she was over the moon. The book deal was a big achievement for her. She was so excited to share the news with colleagues. And then one colleague commented, "People that can't publish do books." Right there, a few words and the excitement is gone. Of course, my experiences may not be your experiences, but I fear they are, at least some of them. Also, you may wonder if these are just words and whether they may not matter so much. I believe they do, because in our profession, all we have is words. Words are the tools we use to share our research ideas, articulate our findings, and influence the perceptions of our readers and students. Every paper we write and every lecture we deliver is grounded in the careful choice of words. Entire articles have been written about this, and themes of conferences have been dedicated to the significance of words. For example, an article published in the Academy of Management Journal in 2011 explains that we spend a considerable amount of time writing and rewriting. They surveyed 22 winners of the AMJ Best Article Award and 20 recipients of the AMJ Outstanding Reviewer Award. And according to the article, as many as 45% of the respondents reported rewriting an introduction as many as 10 times or more. And you may be wondering, why so much trouble? The research question and our findings are exactly the same, no matter if we use those words or not. Well, not in the academic world. If reviewers see the importance of our research question and understand how the study advances prior research in the topic, they are more likely to continue reading, and they are also less likely to reject the paper. And I quote, "If we want our insights to influence management research and practice, we need to pay as much attention to the craft of writing as we do to identifying and answering interesting questions." So even if in essence the study doesn't really change, the choice of words can have a significant role in how our paper is perceived by our audience. In our profession, words are so important that even one can change the meaning of our results significantly and the expectations of the readers. Just one. To illustrate my point, let's focus on the word link and synonyms such as relationship or association. A word like this in the title of the paper can convey to the reader a number of aspects of our study. See, for example, the following title, "The Link Between Overtime Work and Stress." The word link suggests that potentially this is a cross-sectional study with data collected at one point in time. The results cannot show causal effects, only associations. One of the limitations is that we cannot really show whether overtime has an impact on stress, although theoretically it could make sense. The managerial implications are that managers and employers should be careful with allowing employees to work overtime, as this potentially contributes to their stress. We say potentially because we cannot be 100% certain, as we cannot prove causation, and future research could address this limitation by using different data. Now, if we had used the word impact instead of link, the meaning interpretations would likely change. And again, so much information comes just from one word. The annual meeting of the Academy of Management, the largest conference of management and organization scholars in the world, has a theme every year. The theme for 2014 was "The Power of Words." This theme invited us to consider the effects of words on individuals, teams, organizations, even nations. The theme emphasized that what and how words are communicated determine the results they bring. Specifically in academia, where constant feedback and critique are part of the process, the impact of our words can be magnified. They can encourage someone to take the next step or, on the other hand, lead to discouragement and hesitation. They can potentially distract from substance and lead individuals to move from anxiety into despair. In the end, they may push good colleagues, good educators and researchers to leave academia or never enter in the first place. The choice of words is especially important when there is a difference in power dynamics. As faculty members, we hold positions of authority and mentorship, often serving as examples for our students and junior colleagues. As such, our words carry substantial weight. For students especially, while we hope that they retain the content of what we teach, they're just as likely, or perhaps more likely, to remember how we made them feel. Their experiences are directly influenced by our tone and choice of words. Also, if it's true that we are seen as examples, there is a strong likelihood that our words, whether positive or negative, can be seen as the norm and perhaps mirrored in their own interactions. Now, Given the impact that words can have on others as well as on ourselves, is there anything we can do to improve our experiences? I believe we can. Perhaps the first step is to recognize that words can indeed shape the experiences of our colleagues, students, and ourselves, and pay careful attention to what we say. Would I say the same thing to someone at a higher level than me? Would I say the same thing to a man and a woman? Would I feel comfortable receiving the same comment? Again, in academia, where constant feedback and critique are part of the process, perhaps we need to focus more on providing developmental comments to help authors and encourage colleagues. Please don't take me wrong. I'm not referring to simple flattery or hiding honest comments. The contrary. Specific, truthful comments are very important, even if they're tough. Even if it means that we need to abandon an entire idea or paper that we developed for years. I'm referring to avoiding non-specific comments with no factual input, the loose adjectives. Perhaps we need to invest in our choice of words like we invest in the writing process of our papers. The reason we are, or at least try to be, so careful in writing is because we want to convey the right message. Our focus is on the reader. Likewise, when we teach, when we provide feedback or conduct evaluations, our words should be chosen with care, and the focus should again be on the reader, the recipient. Perhaps we need to speak up more and address unsuitable language. I know there have been occasions where I could have done better. I gave the example of me being in the audience once observing a PhD student who was the recipient of unfortunate words, and I remained silent. I wonder if I should have said something in that moment. In other situations, silence was the better choice. I hope to find a way in the future to distinguish more clearly between the two, when to speak up and when to remain silent. I even spent a lot of time, honestly, contemplating whether or not to bring up this issue at all in this inaugural lecture. Just the other day, a colleague in the school canteens asked me how I was doing. I told him I was fine, but very busy working in my inaugural speech. And he said, "You said exactly the same thing 2 months ago." And he was right, because much of my time and mental energy has been thinking about how to express this final point. And given that I get to give this lecture once, I decided it is important to talk about it. And this inaugural speech is in many ways a step forward for me. Before I close this inaugural, I couldn't hold myself back. And as a typical Greek, I felt I had to say something about the ancient Greek philosophers and what they said about the choice of words. I did my research. I read online. I tried to open all these books that you see in the slide. I asked my friends that have studied Greek philosophy. And here is the conclusion. Plato, for example, believed that the choice of words and education are closely interconnected. He placed significant emphasis on the choice of words in communication. He considered them not only to be tools for conveying meaning, but also instruments that shape thought, understanding, and reality itself. He argued that if the words we use are imprecise or incorrect, they can mislead people and distort their perceptions of reality. He explained that language should be used responsibly and stressed the responsibility of the speaker to ensure that their words promote good in the listener. I leave the interpretation of good to you. Also, in the start of the inaugural, I explained how I found my way to academia. In part, it was because of the encouragement I found in the words of others, professors, and fellow students, that I came to believe that an academic career is possible and that I could do it. In closing this inaugural, let me tell you why academia turned out to be a good choice for me. It was a good choice because I consider it a privilege, a profession of luxury, where I dedicate my time to studying, reading, and improving as a scholar, and hopefully as a person. Because it provides me with a platform to make a meaningful difference, when I can, for others. Because it gives me the opportunity to pursue meaningful research that can improve the experience of workers and employers. Because it allows me to teach HRM, a subject I value, helping future employers, managers, and perhaps leaders understand the responsibilities to employees and the impact they can have. Because academia allows me to live my values. And finally, because it allows me, when I find the courage, to speak publicly on issues that matter. Thank you. Thank you.
All right. After Argyro, it's difficult to say anything. But I have a couple of words. My name is Daniela Lup. I've been until recently the head of faculty. So at the time when Argyro was asking, it was in that capacity. I'm not anymore, but I am kind of friend, colleague, and spoke with many colleagues across the campuses, which in the back of Argyro's tell lots of things. So first, really thank you for all being here today to celebrate our wonderful colleague, Argyro. And also thank you, Argyro, for choosing me to say a few words about what you represent for the London campus, but also for colleagues from other campuses who speak very highly about you. If there was a moment when you doubt, now you know it. We really talk a lot about you, and it's only good. For what you said, what sets you apart, Argyro, is not just your hard work, but also your humility and willingness to help others. Personally, I know many times I was actually about to throw in the towel, and you know them. But then, you know, here was Argyro, and those of you who are close enough to her, you would know what she typically carries in her hand. A brownie. Or something like that. Saying, come on, take it. You'll need it. It's gonna be fine, right? And, you know, guess what? Fine it is most of the times. But seriously, Argyro, it's always fine, and you take no credit for that. And you're generous, and seriously, your ability to turn others' stress into success is truly inspiring. And I know that many, many other colleagues from the London campus and across campuses and from other universities know that firsthand. And then, you know, there is Argyro, who has a great sense of humor and is a fun-loving spirit, and always makes time to talk, and spending time with Argyro really flies. It was only yesterday when we managed about 2 hours of quick catch-up. But, you know, after that, you speak with Argyro, and you are left with this lingering feeling that, after all, you know, life is good. And to paraphrase one of my favorite characters in a book, and I didn't know, honestly, until I saw it with Martin. My character is Paddington. It is more fun to talk with someone who is really smart, but who doesn't use long words, difficult words, but rather short and easy words like, what about the brownie? Take it. You might need it tomorrow. Of course, that's marmalade, but Argyro has the brownies. I also want to acknowledge Argyro's work for SIGNA, the network of women academics, together with Will, Shasha, and our colleague Ling. And I know firsthand that networks like this do not flourish spontaneously. They require continuous nurturing. Friendships between academics is built on thousands of small gestures, kindness, everything from, helping to reframe a paper, as Argyro mentioned, to sharing sometimes intimate thoughts about one's career, one's life, one's health, and offering support in dark moments, but also celebrating when we defeat the second reviewer, right? And among the thousands of small kindness around the Signia network, I think Argyro accounts for a significant percent. In fact, I am here at the ESCP thanks to Argyro and Signia. And I met Argyro 6 years ago in November 2018 at Signia. And I don't think I would have ever applied to a school of which I knew nothing, absolutely nothing. But then here's again Argyro in this capacity that she doesn't know, she assumes, but she does, like one of the best ambassadors of ESCP saying, come, with that kind of gesture, come, we can be colleagues, we can work together, right? And then I'm not sure that there were brownies involved at that point, but I took it and here I am, and I did apply in the end. And since then we've been colleagues and friends, and I'm grateful for that come. So here's to you, Professor Avgoustaki. Congratulations. Thank you for being you and for making our lives so much brighter. And we are looking forward to raise a glass for now, for the future, and for everybody. Thank you so much.